Hi, so I read Reading in the Wild this semester. Last spring, I read the book Whisper when I took Amy Rogers' children's literature class, and I really enjoyed it. So I decided to read the second part of Reading in the Wild this year. Um, I am a first year teacher this fall. It'll be my first time having my own classroom. Just completed my student teaching this spring. Due to COVID, it got cut short, and then I ended up doing the digital learning online with my teacher. So a lot of this beginning part on the curriculum and the physical space, I use just my knowledge from the previous classrooms I've been in, my student teaching classroom I was in, just all my field experience kind of pushed together, and then also with the envision of what I hope my future classroom to be this fall. The second part, I more talked about what I would like to strengthen for myself with my classroom that I'm going to be having this fall. And so through my slides, you'll be able to see kind of the differences between those two. So the first part was through the eyes of a student, the space and the curriculum. So in our school where I did my student teaching and now I accepted a position, there are rolling book carts in the lunchroom, in the commons, in the hallways. There's lots of time and like resources for children to read. So that's really great, and I love that about our school. There's reading posters, there's quote posters, pictures, there's lots of ELBA posters. ELBA is something that they do out in the Grand Forks schools. They have different divisions like picture books and then like beginning chapter books and then like the good sized chapter books that we read in upper level. And then once the students are completed with a division, so like the first division is picture books, lots of students normally finish that division and then they get their picture put on the wall outside of the library and like a smaller picture, and then the next division they get a little bit bigger picture, and then the third division, if they finish that one, they get an even bigger picture. So lots of reading posters that really help students be able to see that in themselves as readers. There's bookshelves. In our classroom that I student taught in, there was bookshelves with bins. In other classrooms that I've been in and done field experience in, they have had without bins. In my classroom, I'm going to do without bins because I would like the students to see the spine, just like if it's in a library. I love that part of going to the library and picking them out based off the spines of the books. This school is fairly new, so there's lots of flexible seating. There's no desks, it's either tables or there's wobble chairs, there's little short chairs, there's kneeling tables, there's high top tables and counter space. I just love the flexible seating. I think it's so great for students to be able to move while we are giving our instruction. Again, tables, cubbies, where they can go underneath the counters, like where you'd put your legs if you were sitting in a chair. Lots of students just like to go under there and just do their reading in their quiet space. And then we also have a commons area in each of the grade level pods. So they're able to go out there. There's lots of flexible seating. There's more cubby areas. There's big windows that they can lean up against and have that natural light, which I love. So that's lots of areas that they can read. The curriculum that we used in my student teaching was the benchmark curriculum. We have students tested with the Fountas and Pinnell reading scale. Again, ELBA is not so much of a curriculum, but something that we use for our reading instruction. So here on the side, I showed the divisions, the different divisions. So division 1, 2, and 3. You can kind of see how there's lots of books to read. It kind of keeps them busy all year round. Our school that I student taught at did this really cool thing where they took all of the third graders and then they grouped the third graders from all four of the classrooms into four groups based on their reading level, things that they might need help with, just additional like knowledge that we can use to help those students. Some students are really great high readers, and then some students are lower readers. Some students need help with word practice and forming words. Some students are going into Latin, like the root words and such like that. So we were able to split them up, and I was focused in on a lower level reading group, which was great experience to really get them up to where they need to go. All of the students, they don't know what exact grade level they are in. They're just told that this is the skill you need to focus on for this group, and then every once in a while they come together as a teacher group and decide if we should move students to a different group, if we should focus on different content, which is great. And I love that it really just meets the reader at where they're at and helps them be stronger with the ELA curriculum. Then another thing, not as much as curriculum, but more of just that reading instruction. We do teacher read aloud every day, where the students just get to sit down, eat a snack, and then we read for 15 to 25 minutes, sometimes even longer if the chapters are longer. Just very relaxed, low-key time just to sit there and read and listen. They can draw, and they can work on other work if they would like, but just being able to hear the teacher read is a great resource for them as well. So part 2 was the application, the areas to improve and modify. And since I don't really have the classroom and I haven't had like my own classroom to be able to change things around, I've just kind of thought about how I could make all the experiences that I've observed into a really great idea for my future classroom. So the first one is the classroom community and sharing books. In the Reading in the Wild, she had this quote: "I envision our classroom as a supportive place where my students and I take risks and learn." When I read that, I just absolutely loved it. I just really, as a first year teacher coming in, being able to just be like, I'm going to take risks and learn as well as they're going to take risks and learn, and just really making that a strong foundation in our classroom. She also spoke about the classroom community and the sharing books, that big classroom libraries make frequent and successful readers. And that's just something that I never had. As I went through school, I was in a very small, lower income school, and we didn't have lots of books in our classrooms. And all our books were at the library, and so we only had library every couple days. And I just want to make sure my students have all those resources for that if they want to take a book from my library, sweet, and then they can just have that book to read before they go down to the actual library class that are offered in the school. Another thing that I'd love to incorporate in my classroom is like the book clubs, the book sharing, book suggestions, just really creating that environment where students can talk about books, because I don't feel like when I was raised through school, I never really had the time to be suggested books or to talk about books with my friends. I was kind of more embarrassed to read, and I never want that to be something that my students experience. So that's something that I'm going to be really focusing on as a new teacher, being able to incorporate that right off the bat. My other area to I was thinking about while reading was the choosing the reading materials. So another quote I saw was, "Providing students with scaffold opportunities to preview, evaluate, and choose text gives them the practice needed in self-selecting books." So not being, as a teacher, not picking the books and saying, "Oh, this is a really good book, I think you should read it." Because I can think back to when I was in school and a teacher would suggest me a book, and I just could not get into it. And I was just like, I don't want to let the teacher down knowing that I couldn't read this book. So I would just try to struggle through it. And it just wasn't a fun reading time for me ever. So I just really struggled with that. In this chapter, I believe it was chapter 2 in the Reading in the Wild about choosing reading materials, she talked about preview stacks, and I thought that was such a great way. She would take 5 to 10 books from her library or from the library in the school and be like, here's 5 to 10 books that I think that you would love. And then the students would she just made sure that they knew that if you don't like any of them, that's perfectly fine. I can find you some more. We can talk it out. We can find different books that we think you would like. But she always suggested just take 1 or 2 from the stack. If there's more that you think you would like, write them down on your list of books to read in the future, but just choose 1 or 2. Put them in your book bin and just read the first couple chapters and see if you think that you like that. And I think that was just like a really great resource for students to be like, okay, well, now the control is kind of back in my hands of picking what book I like, but I got some suggestions. I've been starting to go through the books that I've had donated from families and friends, and I'm making sure that I have lots of different kinds of formats: picture books, chapter books, magazines, newspaper, joke books, audiobooks, pamphlets. Just keep going through, making sure that anything students want to read or anything that has words on them, that the students can just choose to read. Because honestly, if they're not going to want to sit down and read a chapter book, but they'll sit down and read a joke book, they're still reading those words and they're still building their vocabulary, which I think is great. One of the things that I'm thinking about and doing lots of research myself is how to check out, reshelf, suggest, keep track of reading, doing those extra things. And in this Reading in the Wild book that I just read, it had lots of great ideas for me as suggestions for a brand new teacher. I thought this was just heaven. So I've had lots of sticky notes in it, and I'm just going to continue to go back as I'm able to get into my classroom this fall. And lastly, just giving students time to read. This was something that I observed in most of my classes that I had field experience in. There wasn't much time to read because curriculum is just pushed so much. And I just really would like to allow them some time to just sit down and read, just some free reading time. In Reading in the Wild, she talked about not giving homework, but maybe homework was reading time, but not. And then I also know that not every student can sit down and read every night. And so not holding them as it is a homework assignment to go home and read, but just saying if you have time when your parents are making dinner or you're driving to school or you're coming home from a sporting practice, how about you just open the book up and just read a little bit, or maybe read to your parents, or just making sure that it's encouraged but not like strictly enforced. Because I know as a student athlete myself all through school, not having that time to just sit down and do homework and read at night was really hard, and knowing that your teacher is like making it's not going to be fun. And I want to make sure that reading is fun so that students stay engaged in reading. So that is my reference, is the Donna Lynn Miller Reading in the Wild book, and this is my presentation.